Hi, everybody. My name is Todd Landon. I'm the head coach with the Dartmouth Crossing Speed Skating Club. I'm here to welcome you to another season and to present a short review of the COVID-19 procedures and regulations that we're going to be asking everyone to observe when you return to ice this season. What we'll cover through this presentation is just identify what the group schedules are, so knowing what group and what your schedule is going to be important to observe some of the guidelines with regards to when you're showing up and how you're entering and exiting the facility. What required equipment you'll need because of trying to keep things contactless. Everyone's going to have their own equipment, and your skates are going to have to be rented and yours for the entire season. There's not going to be any borrowing or exchanging of equipment on a nightly basis. We'll review what the Speed Skate Nova Scotia's return to skating guidelines are that are meant to help create an environment, a safe environment for participants to return to speed skating. The RBC Center, they have their own rules for reopening with regards to when we can access the facility and how many people are allowed in the facility. And then we'll go over what the pre-practice screening questions will look like before you can enter the facility and attend a practice. So the group schedules are Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays from 7 until 7:50 is three different groups. There's two different ice sessions on Tuesdays. Starting at 7 o'clock is the skills development 2, the Masters 1 and Special Olympics. Then at 8 o'clock is the competitive group and the Masters 2. On Thursdays, there are three different ice sessions. 6:30 is Skills Development 1 and Special Olympics 2. At 7:10 is Skills Development 2, Masters 1, Special Olympics 3. At 8 is Competitive Group and Masters. I will cover this information in an additional slide, but I just want to point out a couple things that you need to be aware of when you are looking at your group schedule is plan to arrive at least 20 minutes prior to your scheduled on ice time. These are the on ice times um, for screening before you enter the facility. So there will be a club safety officer outside at the main entrance to screen you, the participant, and any spectator that may be entering with them. Um, You will be waiting outside until 15 minutes prior to your scheduled ice time. Coaches will escort you into the dressing room. Where you'll be able to put on your skates. Your equipment should be on already by the time you arrive. You'll wait in the dressing room until it is your scheduled ice time when you will go right to the ice and onto the ice. Um, then you'll be required to exit the facility within 15 minutes following your scheduled ice time. That information will be covered. Um, Reasons why for that will be covered later. But for now, just know that show up 20 minutes before your scheduled ice time. You'll only be entering the facility 15 minutes before your scheduled ice time, and you will need to leave within 15 minutes following your scheduled ice time. Because the club is trying to remain contactless and avoid having individuals having to cross by one another, all participants will have their own skates for the duration of the season. You'll be as rentals, which also means that any of the safety equipment that you may have borrowed in the past, you will have to acquire for yourself. So the cut resistant ankle guards, the Kevlar Dyneema tubes that go up around your ankle, hard shin pads, so a soccer style shin pad, soft knee pads. So this would be a volleyball style knee pad, not an inline style knee pad that has the hard caps on them. Should be something that is soft and won't slide on the ice. Cut resistant gloves, a bib style neck guard. So this is a neck guard that is more than just a collar around. It actually has a bit of a bib that hangs down below the clavicle. Safety glasses, a helmet, so either a CSA approved helmet or a speed skating approved helmet For some athletes, and these are mostly athletes in the competitive group, a cut resistant suit, and all participants should have their own water bottle. Bring the water bottle filled at home. There will not be access to water filling facility at the arena. With the equipment is arrive ready to play. All your equipment should be on other than your skates, so that when you're coming in, leave any unnecessary equipment behind. When you come in, you're just coming in ready to step on the ice, other than your skates in your hand to put them on in the dressing room, and then no skate bag left in the dressing room, and just your shoes, maybe a small little paper bag that you might have some hand sanitizer in, something to put your face mask in because that is required to enter the facility, and that should be all that you leave behind, and taking your water bottle out onto the ice. So Speed Skate Nova Scotia has put together some guidelines to create a safe environment for participants to return to play. So these are derived from Nova Scotia sport guidelines, with using some references from Hockey Nova Scotia's rebound plan, and also RBC's rules for reopening. So some of the key cornerstone guidelines to the plan is meeting or exceeding current public health regulations, knowing what the sport facilities operating guidelines are, which we'll get into later in the presentation. Practice physical distancing by staying 2 meters away from others entering and exiting the facility, and when not engaged in physical activity. Wear a mask is mandatory in public facilities. It is not mandatory during physical activity, but we will ask that anyone that feels comfortable wearing a mask during physical activity, please do so. Just general personal hygiene, wash and sanitize hand frequently and avoid touching your face, and self-monitor for symptoms of COVID-19 on a daily basis before arriving at practice. So as far as guidelines for the environment, the club will be following current provincial regulations for gathering limits without physical distancing. Those current guidelines for sport is 50 participants. That includes skaters, coaches, volunteers, and officials. Up to 50 participants that do not have to observe physical distancing. So that is the context that we're operating under. Follow sport facility specific guidelines regarding number of participants allowed in. The facility is allowing 50 participants on the ice and 50 spectators. And we'll get into those specifics in a bit. For a group remaining physical distance, any club that might have a group that is remaining physically distant, coaches will need to prepare the space, marking spaces to keep that physical distance. And just asking that you maintain physical distance, and really there's no reason to hang around before or after practice outside or inside. So try not to loiter before or after practice. Equipment, as I've touched on twice already, I believe. Arrive ready to practice wearing all of your required equipment, other than having your skates in your hand when you enter the facility, and you will have access to the dressing room to put your skates on. And any parents that need to help their skater get their skates on, you will be allowed to do that as well. Personal equipment such as a water bottle, or if you have a towel that you might use, should not be shared. And again, the water bottle should be filled at home because there is no access to a water filling station in the arena. If a club has a group that remains physically distanced, that group will not share equipment and will not engage in activities with contact. With the guidelines that we can have 50 participants without physical distancing, they can share equipment and can engage in activities with contact. So that's relays, high five, sharing high fives. Personal protective precautions. All participants are going to be screened prior to practice. This includes skaters, coaches, volunteers, and any spectators that are coming in. There'll be an attendance list of all registered participants, and any spectators will be asked to sign in after answering the screening questions, all for contact tracing purposes. If through screening you're identified as a potential exposure risk, you're going to be asked to refrain from entering the facility and attending practice, asked to self-isolate and seek appropriate medical attention. And further details about what those next steps will look like will be on an additional slide. We're going under the kind of the mantra that wearing a mask is better than not wearing a mask. While a mask is required entering and exiting the facility, it is not required while participating in the physical activity. So once the skater is on the ice, we are asking that any skater that feels comfortable wearing a mask, that they please do so, just because it's better to have one on than not to have one. In between exercises or activity, it's a little hard when they're doing their activities, playing games, doing drills. They're different skaters moving at different speeds, and they're weaving in and out. It's hard to maintain that physical distancing. There's going to be some incidental contact. But between activity, when they're resting, we're going to be trying to practice physical distance and asking participants to practice physical distance as much as possible between their activities. Individuals should bring in some hand sanitizer and other hygiene equipment into the dressing room. So really what an athlete should be bringing in with them is equipment is on, skates in their hands, a water bottle, and maybe a paper bag of some sort. So like a paper shopping bag or a gift bag of some sort that would carry their water bottle, carry some hand sanitizer, somewhere that is safe and sanitary to put their mask if they're not wearing their mask after entering, and they will need it to exit again if they're not wearing it when they're getting on the ice. That somewhere safe to put that is not just hanging on the wall in the dressing room. And then just some other personal protective precautions is for any skater that may not wash their equipment very frequently through the season, this is a season to do it a little bit more often. So washing and sanitizing clothing and equipment after practice as much as possible. Communication, the club has a liaison that will work with the RBC Center if there's any updates and to understand their operating guidelines. Through this presentation, we are sharing the club's specific plans to be in the facility and specific plans for the training groups. When you registered with the club, you would have already confirmed adherence to the return to sport guidelines. You would have already confirmed that you will review government information regarding COVID-19 symptoms, and you would have also consented to being included in a group without physical distancing. And the other communication piece is that the club is going to maintain a record of attendance. Again, this is all registered participants and any spectators that are entering with them for contact tracing purposes afterwards. If you're looking for information regarding COVID-19 symptoms, there's the Government of Canada coronavirus information website, the Government of Nova Scotia's coronavirus information website, and Nova Scotia sport guidelines through the Government of Nova Scotia. So the RBC Center, it has its own rules for reopening. They have a gathering limit of 50 for on-ice activities, so that we will definitely fall well under that, just because it's for practical reasons. 50 for a speed skate practice is a little bit too many. Participants need to come ready to play. We've covered that. This will be the fourth time I've mentioned that one. Wearing all your equipment other than skates in your hands and a paper shopping bag maybe that has a water bottle in it, some hand sanitizer, and somewhere safe to put your mask between entering and exiting the facility. Um, Participants are only going to be accessing the facility 15 minutes prior to rental. What we're asking is that participants arrive at least 20 minutes prior to their scheduled practice time to be screened outside. The club's ice time is on rink D, which will use the main entrance to enter and exit. So we're going through the main lobby in and out of the facility. So meeting the safety officer outside at least 20 minutes prior to practice, excuse me. And then 15 minutes prior to practice, skaters will have access to the facility. Coaches will lead them into the dressing rooms, where the dressing rooms will be available to put skates on and to store your paper bag, your shoes, and the paper bag with a little bit of equipment. And I'm saying a paper bag because if you need to dispose of it, recycle it, however it may be, whatever you may do, you can do that after each practice or when you feel that you need to. After practice, participants will need to exit 50 minutes after rental. Spectators are allowed in the facility. They are asking that the spectators are adults only, that it's only one spectator per participant, and that spectator is not a child. Spectators may only enter 5 minutes before the rentals. So this is about 10 minutes after the participants have entered, and they need to exit 10 minutes after the rental or 5 minutes before the participants enter. And this is just to prevent all the spectators and all the participants wanting to exit at once. If we have a wave of the participants going in and then 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, the spectators follow in, this would not include any parents that are going in to help their skater tie skates. The other thing that we have to factor in is because our sessions are back to back, we need spectators to leave immediately because while one group is coming off the ice, another group will be coming on the ice out of the dressing rooms and onto the ice. So spectators need to be out of the way for that. For spectators, the spectators will have to be within the arena envelope. So this means not in the hallways. The upstairs gallery is off limits. It is only around the boards inside the actual arena. It's not out in the hallways. Spectators must practice physical distancing, must wear their mask the entire time they're in there, which means that there's no food or drink permitted, which would require a mask to be removed. And just everyone is reminded to be mindful of following facility signage and staff directions regarding COVID-19 and the guidelines for reopening. When you show up 20 minutes before your scheduled ice time, you will be screened by a club safety officer. You will be asked whether you are experiencing any of the COVID-19 symptoms. You will be asked if you have had contact within the past 14 days, whether you've had contact with a symptomatic person known or suspected to have COVID-19. Any medical professionals are exempt from this who might have close contact with a symptomatic person, but are wearing appropriate PPE when they do so. You will be asked if you have traveled outside the Atlantic region in the past 14 days, and you'll be asked if you have had contact with a person who has traveled outside of the Atlantic region in the past 14 days. Anyone who has a family member that is an essential worker or a rotational worker that may be exempt or have some eased requirements regarding physical distancing because they are an essential worker or rotational worker, you are exempt from that particular um, question. But if you happen to have been exposed to someone who had just traveled for the sake of traveling, then you would not be exempt from that particular question. So if the answer is yes to any one or more of the questions, an individual is going to be asked to call 811 for further assessment by a nurse. The individual, until a reply comes back from 811, the individual is not going to be allowed to participate in Dartmouth Cross and Speed Skating Club activities unless 811 clears an 811 assessment clears the participant to do so, and they are symptom free for 24 hours. So this means if no testing is required, the participant will have to stay away from practice until they have been symptom free for 24 hours. Or if they are tested and the result comes back negative, it will be the same, as they will still have to stay away from practice until they are symptom free for 24 hours. And if they are diagnosed, then that period is going to be longer until they are cleared that they are no longer symptomatic. So in general, just to kind of review, what is the procedure going to be when you show up to practice? Depending on your group ice time, you will arrive 20 minutes prior to your scheduled practice time. You are going to report outside at the main entrance, where a club safety officer will ask you the screening questions. There you will wait, remaining physically distanced, to enter the facility. You'll be escorted by your coaches when it is 15 minutes prior to your scheduled practice time. You'll be escorted into the dressing rooms where you can put your skates on, store your shoes, your paper bag with your mask in it, and maybe some hand sanitizer. You will wait in the dressing room until the scheduled practice time, when you will be escorted onto the ice for your practice. And then afterwards, you will go back in your dressing room, remove your skates, put your shoes back on, and then will need to exit the facility within 15 minutes following practice. So you've seen the little infographics through the presentation, some just additional ones. If you're experiencing one or more symptoms, call 811. Wash or sanitize your equipment after practice. Wash and sanitize your hands and avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. And you must wear a mask in public facilities, and during activity it's better to wear a mask than not wearing a mask. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. I invite you, if you have any questions, to contact Bert Logier, the club president, or contact myself. And I look forward to seeing everyone on the ice. Take care and have a great season.